Hello everyone, my name is Robin Hicks, and this is the first video in my video series, Choosing Joy. The series is all about what to do whenever we have to face some of the rough things in life, and today's episode is specifically about how to find joy when you're faced with a diagnosis of having cancer. I'd like to share my personal story with you and talk to you about some things that I did to find happiness in one of the darker times in my life. If you find this message to be helpful, or you know someone who is recently diagnosed or is maybe facing their own battle with cancer and needs to hear this message, please like, share. That is what these videos are for, to help people find some joy and some solace in times that seem difficult and sometimes impossible. So I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma on August 5th in 2004. I am and was a teacher. It was my second year teaching, and I was headed to my classroom to decorate. But for the past probably 6 weeks or so, I'd had some really weird things going on. And the best way I could describe it as just feeling off. I would say, oh, my head feels foggy, or my armpits feel funky, but no lumps, nothing like that. Probably the biggest symptom was that I was waking up in the morning and my face would be really swollen and red. And as the day would go on, it would go back to normal. And just odd things like that. So I wanted to go decorate my classroom. My mom said, please go to the emergency room for me. Just double check everything out. It's probably fine. You'll just be there for a little bit. You'll have the rest of the day to take care of your room. So I did. I thought I would be there for a couple of hours, but I was really there for about 4 hours. They ran a bunch of tests and several doctors came to see me, and they kept saying things like, it's funny, it looks like cancer, but there's no way, you're just way too young. At the time I was in my early 20s. And so one ER doctor, thankfully, said, I tell you what, let's do a chest x-ray, just double check, send her on her way, we'll make her an appointment with someone to check and make sure she's not having allergy problems or she's not having an allergic reaction. So they made me an appointment with an allergist, did the chest x-ray, and I thought I was about to be excused when the doctor came into my section of the ER with a nurse. And I knew, because he had brought something or someone with him, that it was probably going to be news that was not super positive. So he actually said, I need you to come look at something. And I said, does my mom need to be there? At the time she was in the waiting room, and he said, yes, she does. So I knew it wasn't good. So they walked me to the x-ray place with my chest x-ray pulled up, and inside the x-ray you could see the tumor. It was inside my chest. It was pretty big. Essentially what was happening was it was wrapped around my superior vena cava. So my face was getting swollen because when I would go to sleep at night, the blood would go into my head. And then when I'd wake up and spend my day doing my things, it would come out. So I would feel normal again and look normal again. So this was a big sign. And in fact, there was even a big risk of me choking in my sleep because I hadn't gotten it checked. So this is key number one. Definitely get checked if you're watching this video and you have anything that feels weird or different, even if it seems small. Number one, go get checked, please. So I stayed at that hospital, Citizens Medical Center in Victoria, for a while. They did an emergency radiation to try to shrink the tumor. Eventually, of course, I was sent off to MD Anderson in Houston, and I spent many days there, not only for initial treatment and diagnosis, but also going back daily for radiation. I had to do the whole process of having cancer. Chemo, radiation, lost all of my hair, even took away my ability to be a biological mother. So some pretty tough stuff there. It was definitely hard when I was going through it, and it still is today on some level. It was frightening for me because I was so young. So I really didn't have anybody to call and ask and say, what's gonna happen here? Or what does this feel like? And so when I was having appointments that I was going to at MD Anderson, I didn't know what they were. So oftentimes I was going into a room for hours having something done to me that I wasn't even sure what it was for. So that was quite scary. So I definitely suggest, if you're going through the cancer process, finding someone you can talk to, even to ask questions to, even if they feel very silly. Even if that person is me, I would be happy to help. I went through this process for about a year and was finally said to be in remission, which is a wonderful thing to hear. But throughout that whole time, I had to find a way to find happiness in this time that felt very dark, scary. I didn't know who to turn to. And I found some coping mechanisms throughout the process to be very helpful, and I want to share those with you. The first one is, if you are religious in any way, turning to God is so super helpful. I have said this many times and have heard this many times, but when you have cancer, that is the closest to God you will ever be. And it certainly does feel that way. I think it's because you don't have anything else, right? And you don't know if it's gonna be okay. So all you can do is pray and ask for help and lean on God. And I think there is solace in leaning on our Savior for protection and peace. And he does bring it to you. You have a lot of time to pray when you're doing chemotherapy. So I think that you find a bond there and a peace and a passion there for fighting for life that is super important and that will bring you lots of joy. And always ask people to pray for you, because you can never have too many prayers. My second bit of advice would be to continue with your life as normal as you can. Continue to go to events and don't stop living. I found what was helpful for me is to find out how chemotherapy works for you. Like, I knew if I had a chemotherapy on a Friday, it probably wouldn't be until Tuesday or Wednesday of the next week that I would feel somewhat normal. So when I was making plans, and I still made plans for dinner, for the movies, I would do that on the days that I knew I was gonna feel better. So my suggestion to you would be not to give up and hide in a room and just feel sick all the time. On the days you know you're gonna feel some normalcy, feel it and make plans and have something to look forward to. You know, you can be doing chemo on a Friday and know it's okay, I have a date on Wednesday. Those things are normal. I think they make you feel good, and I think they help you to find some joy in moments where you kind of feel yucky. And if you're doing chemotherapy, it does make you feel yucky, I will tell you that. So finding joy where you can is super helpful. Also, it's important to get dressed and show up. You know, we hear all the time, just get dressed. If you're a girl and you wear makeup, put your makeup on, get dressed up, because if you show up, you're gonna feel better, right? This is very true when you're fighting cancer. I actually continued to work, which a lot of people thought was crazy. As a classroom teacher, they were like, no, you know, and you're young, stay home for the duration of your treatments and go back to work next year. There's no rush. But I have to be honest, y'all, I found it so comforting to be in a classroom with those students every day. And I did not stay the whole day. I will tell you that I only worked from 8 to 12 because that's all I could handle, because I would get very tired. But for me, it just brought so much joy to be around the kids and their laughter and their normalcy. And honestly, y'all, what was I gonna do? Sit at home and lay on the couch and feel sorry for myself? I found that the more that I laid around feeling sick, the sicker I felt. And I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes you are gonna feel really sick, and sometimes it's not gonna be possible to get out of bed that day. And that's okay. That's part of the healing process. But please find the time on the days when you feel somewhat normal to do some normal activities. Lead as much a normal life as you can. That is the way that you're gonna find some joy in a time that can feel hopeless otherwise. My other suggestion, and I think this is probably my favorite one, is celebrate. Make a plan for what you're gonna do when you are told you're in remission. It can be a party with all your friends and family. It can be a dinner where you invite everyone that you know to come and celebrate with you. It can be a shopping trip, a girls' weekend where you go to the Galleria and hit up all your favorite stores. But I think probably something that is so key about healing and getting better and finding joy and true happiness in a time that can be really rough is to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And what's the best way to see that? Or what's a better way to see that than to have a plan? Think about how when you plan a vacation, you know, it's okay if it's 6 months away. You are looking forward to the end of that 6 months. And I feel very much the same way about this. You can get through it. You just have to look forward to that happy time that's gonna be there as soon as you're out of it, and you will be out of it. And finally, you have to laugh. It's just necessary, y'all. I have to tell you the funniest story, and I don't know that anyone that was there will ever forget this, but when the doctor told me, you know, I don't know what this is, but it looks like you have lymphoma, I said, okay. And I thought for a minute. Now, I had been in the emergency room for 4 hours. I had not eaten yet because I just thought I was gonna be there for a few. And so I was hungry, and my favorite restaurant was right across the street. And he said, we need to book you for some tests. And I said, yes, sir, but do you mind if I run across the street and eat my favorite Mexican place first? And he looked at me like, what? And he looked at my mom like, she knows what I just told her, right? And that will forever be one of my favorite stories. He actually did let me leave the hospital and go eat and then come back to be checked in for tests and of course the whole rest of the process. But it's moments like that, I think, that make the bad things that happen to us bearable. That finding the smiles, the laughter, the silliness, the quirky things when we're going through things like battling cancer. Laugh. It's okay to laugh. And you have to believe. You have to believe that it's gonna be okay. Don't give up the fight. You're gonna make it. If you found this video helpful, again, please like, love, share with someone who needs to hear it. And as always, feel free to reach out. I am so happy to answer questions about my cancer journey, hoping that helps you with yours. Until next time.